The brain is the most powerful tool humankind will ever have. For how easily it can be broken, it is remarkably difficult to be fixed. Meanwhile, as the brain is broken, it creates a story that can never be forgotten. Together we will capture these stories and share them with the world to relate and connect on real life battles. Join me as we enter into the darkest times of people's lives. I'm Jimmy Boyd, and this is Shattered Minds. Tough love or abuse? I was about 10 years old when I realized something within my upbringing was wrong. It wasn't until I was 24 when I understood why my mind was shattered. For quick context, my mother has bipolar disorder. Combine that with her narcissism, and I got the hot mess that is my mother. Most of my childhood was spent in fear, as I knew that anything would set her off. I can recall being terrified of doing homework when I got home, because if I pronounced a word wrong or got a long subtraction answer wrong, these mistakes are welcoming a 20-minute lecture of my mom screaming at me that I would not amount to anything in life, or a beating. As a result, I studied harder to the point where I constantly got honor roll. Sadly, it still did not stop my mother from finding other ways to threaten a beating or screaming at me. My mother took every opportunity to make sure that everyone knew that it was because of her that I'm getting good grades. Everything was about her the day my teacher wanted to talk to her about my grades. My mom had this strange rule when it came to friends. In a quick summary, I was not allowed to go to a friend's house. However, at the same time, I humiliated her, and she made fun of me because I had no friends. I was allowed to have friends, but only under supervision of my mother. This person also had to have the same religious faith as we did. She's a Catholic. And this person was not allowed to come from a broken home because it would make her look bad. This made making friends pointless, because as soon as they realized how crazy my mother was, how I wasn't able to go to their house, or how she would follow us around the neighborhood to make sure I wasn't doing anything she wouldn't approve of, they didn't want to hang out anymore. Eventually, the bullying began at school, and my mother just could not understand why. I got beat up in second grade, and once I mentioned that I fought back, her response was, "Well, you totally deserved it for laying your hands on him," and keep shouting, "Shut the fuck up," or a threat of getting beat up by her until I gave up trying to explain myself. These conversations happened frequently. My mother was also one to never stand up for me when things went wrong. If the teachers, whether at school or catechism, said something that was not favorable to me, my mom would take it as if something I deserved, because it also meant that I was making her look bad. I can recall a catechism teacher being aware that I was being physically assaulted by several of the students at catechism, and yet the teacher turned a blind eye and told my mother that I was being unruly and disrespectful. I can recall leaving catechism several times with tears in my eyes, looking for the one person I'd hope would comfort me, only to be pushed away and getting hit simply because I humiliated her. Same happened when I was with family. I recall a memory when I was 6, when my cousin smashed my fingers on the door just for kicks. I cried to my mom, to which she responded with a pull in the ear and whispered, "You're really embarrassing me right now. You need to shut up and take it like a man, like a dog loyal to his owner. It never occurred to me that this was abuse, but yet another opportunity to improve on bettering myself. I was convinced I was not being a good person and tried my hardest to make her proud of me. Whenever I questioned my behavior to my mom or my peers, it immediately got shut down with excuses in the form of, "It's tough love," or "That's because you're a brat," and so on. I tried convincing myself that she was doing her best as a mother by having our best interests in us. Fast forward to 2001. My parents separate, and my brother and I were forced to live with my grandparents. It was when we moved, was when I started to realize something was not right. My mom did not want to come off as crazy to her parents, so there was no avoiding me playing with the rest of the kids and being invited over to their homes without the family thinking she was psycho if she got upset over that. When I went to these people's houses and noticed that they didn't get beat to a pulp for breaking a dish, for dyeing their hair, or having opposing views, it was as if I saw colors that were never discovered. My mom was not happy. She would threaten me with more beatings if I continued seeing these people, to which I said, "Fine, it'll be worth it." She never followed through. Instead, 2 years later, my parents got together for some reason, and my mom moved us away as it was a bad influence on me. I come back to my hometown and I realized the damage was done. The bullying began and the blame game continued. Thankfully, no beatings by this point, because I learned about CPS and threatened CPS on her if she dared lay another hand on me. It wasn't until 3 years later when I got to experience that joyful feeling of having friends again. But I digress. By high school, my mom would find other ways to get her kicks, seeing as she can't hit me anymore. That she would intentionally get me upset so that I would get mad at her and she would have a sob story to share about how horrible a child I was to her, and the likes. The family was convinced for the longest of time that I was this horrible person because I yelled at my mom, that it didn't matter to them that she was manipulating me into getting upset. I later started running away from home frequently, and she would use that as a reason to tell the family that I was a horrible person. I didn't care. I stayed with an amazing friend and his wonderful family who would eventually love me like another son. With some peers, I would numb the pain away with drugs and alcohol and a suicide attempt. After my first attempt, instead of asking how I was, my mom fake sobbed about how she was worried at how bad it would make her look if I killed myself, and that I probably didn't think of that, as I was being selfish. By the time I went to university, I was gone, still traumatized by my childhood. I wanted to seek a therapist to talk about my upbringing. I only wished I did this sooner because I was being told that I wasn't crazy for the first time in 24 years, and it was one of the best feelings in the world. I felt as if a lot of weight was lifted off my shoulders just from hearing someone tell me that I wasn't crazy. I discovered that I have CPTSD from all the years of abuse that I received from this pathetic excuse of a woman who calls herself Mom. I learned that her version of tough love was really abuse, and nothing was done out of love. It was a narcissist's need for control. For the longest of time, I have been in denial and excused her behavior, as I believe that she had no idea that her actions were causing harm. I later learned that not only did she know exactly what she was doing, but the way my mom treated me was a common tactic among narcissists to weaken their victims into always feeling that they need the narcissist. This is why many adults who grew up in a narcissist household have a difficult time adjusting into the real world. I also learned that she never really cared about me. The only reasons why she acted the way she did was because the image meant more to her than my well-being, and the only reason she got upset all the time is because narcissists only find joy in pain, which all describe my mother down to a T. Admittedly, although I took a lot of it to heart, I also denied some of it, especially the part where my therapist said that my mother didn't love me. After hearing my mom criticizing me for standing up to relatives who thought they could still hurt me like they did when I was a kid, and for staying silent when I asked, "You never really did love me, did you?" That was all that I needed to be convinced that my therapist was right. I have not seen or spoke to my mom in 4 months, and at this point, I don't care if I ever see her again. I am surprised she has not tried to sweet talk me into coming back into her life like she usually does whenever we have a falling out. I have noticed that my days of depression have been shortened, and the amount of days where I'm happy have improved. All because I got rid of toxic people in my life. If you feel like you're in a situation like this one, or similar, whether it's a relative or a partner, run away and never come back to them. The chances of converting a narcissist into a loving person are 0%. Narcissists are miserable people who are very much aware that they are hurting others, and will keep doing so simply because they want you to be just as miserable as they are. If you do end up leaving, they will try to sweet talk you into coming back. This is just another form of manipulation to bring you back. Don't listen to anything a narcissist ever tells you. They just want to weaken you to the point where you are convinced that your life means nothing without them. You are a better person than any narcissist would ever be. This is the end of story. Tough love or abuse. This is a message for anyone watching this video. I am completely blown away by this story. The true pain and suffering you must have endured is something not many of us will ever be able to comprehend. As I've stated in one of my previous videos, parent roles are so vital to a child's well-being. They need their support, their love, their guidance to become the greater expected version of what our parents once were. It always hurts me to hear these stories where parents just didn't do their best that they could possibly be for us. I'm extremely sorry for everything you had experienced back as a child at home. In my honest opinion, I believe that this was definitely some form of abuse, and definitely not just tough love. There is always that fine line of teaching a child what needs to be taught and completely belittling or downing others for self-benefit. This here appears to be what was going on. I think the happiest part I did hear was that you found your form of sacred ground where you can begin to heal and become your own person, even if that means leaving your mother behind for a while, or even for good. Sometimes the ones we love are the ones who are hurting us the most, and it hurts to have to let them go. But again, we have to do what's best for our health and our minds. I'm proud of you for making a strong decision on this that would ultimately help you in the long run. You are very strong, and I admire you for your strength. You made a decision that is extremely hard to make, that I think many of us would normally struggle with. Keep moving, and do not give up. More people will come into your life and replace those you've lost. Those who come in will greatly enhance your life, and you will begin to see what this life has to offer you. And in return, will you learn to love yourself even more? I would finally like to say, if you know someone who is contemplating suicide, please know that you are not alone. You are loved. You are cared for. People are here for you. You can find help at the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Call the number on your screen. People are here available for you to speak at any time. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can also visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Thank you for watching.